both of us living in New York City, there's obviously a lot of noise here, both literally and figuratively. We have, responsibilities, different jobs that we work, a lot of people in our lives around,
Going on the train.
going on the train.
Ooh.
Very overstimulating the city can be. And Tupper Lake is about the antithesis of that in terms of the peace that you can find out there.
This is Northwards, a show from North Country Public Radio where we meet people who live in our neighborhood, do things here, or just people you ought to know about. I'm Mitch Tyke.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from Joe Steiniger and Mary McDonald in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
So this is usually the time when I introduce our producer, Ethan Shanty, and we babble about something that's related to the interview that we're about to hear. But Ethan is away this week, something about a birthday, so I'm just going to talk to myself. Or maybe you for a minute or two before we get into this latest interview. Actually, it's a shame that Ethan is not here. He is a musician with a band that's recorded a couple of real live albums, and I would be interested to hear what he thinks is something that's been weighing on my mind a lot lately. I'm in the middle of reading a book called How Music Works. It's by David Byrne. He's the Talking Heads frontman. He's a smart guy, and for my benefit, a Maryland native just like me. I have been finding myself chewing on a lot of what he has to say in the book, especially about recording versus live performance and how we hear things based on how they're recorded. In fact, I've been thinking about this so much that there are times that it's rattling around in my head while I'm listening to music and I lose track of actually what I'm listening to as I just listen for the quality. Is that the way to put it? Anyway, I'm sure Ethan would have had something to say about it, but since he is not here, you will hear in a few minutes that I brought it up with the guys I interviewed on this episode of Northwards. They are Michael Shofi and Jake Slater. They are also musicians, fortunately for us. Their projects or collaboration or band, whatever, is called Drifter. They live in Brooklyn, but they've just released their first recording called the Tupper Tapes, Volume 1. And because it is called the Tupper Tapes, you will not be surprised to learn that it was recorded on Tupperware. No, just kidding. It was recorded in Tupper Lake on tape in a cabin that they rented for just this occasion. Anyway, listening to it brings a lot of the things that David Byrne wrote about to the front of mind, or my mind. We will hear some music from them in a few minutes, but first, Michael and Jake join us from Brooklyn. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for taking the time to
Thanks
speak
for
with us.
having us. We're psyched to be here.
So how long have these songs, I don't know, maybe this is the right word considering we're all drinking coffee. How long have these songs been percolating, if that's the right word?
It's a perfect word for that. A couple of years.
A couple of years. I mean, some of them are newer than others.
Yeah.
We recorded the album fall of 2024.
Yeah, like
So pretty recently.
October-ish.
October, yeah.
October. Right when it was getting chilly.
Yeah, it was chilly in Tupper. It was very hot in the city, I think, still. So it was a nice escape.
Yeah.
And yeah, the songs had been, some of them Jake wrote by himself, some of them I wrote by myself, and then some of them we collaborated on together. And then when we made the project Drifter, we just decided to kind of curate the songs that would make the most sense to create some sort of cohesive album with.
Yeah. We like so much of the same stuff, and we tend to write in similar ways a lot of the time. And we were making all these songs, and we were like, what are we doing? Like, you gotta start playing together. So we did, and here we are.
Well, and so what was it that made you decide to not just breathe life into them, but do it in Tupper Lake of all places?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that both of us living in New York City, there's obviously a lot of noise here, both literally and figuratively. We have, responsibilities, different jobs that we work, a lot of people in our lives around, and
Going on the train.
going on the train.
Ooh.
Very overstimulating the city can be at times. And Tupper Lake is about the antithesis of that in terms of the peace that you can find out there. And I've always subscribed to the idea that, going on a retreat of sorts is the best way you can make art happen. The best way that you can really focus in on one thing without having to worry about like, oh, like I need to feed the cat at 5 p.m. I need to, take out the trash at this time or whatever. So I had gone up to Tupper Lake a couple years back with a friend of mine to write some music. And our goal was just to write some music, see what would happen. And we came out with about 5 songs in like 2.5 days up there, which is unheard of, like absolutely unheard of. I'll take like 5 years to finish a song. So to finish that much content in such a small amount of time, I kind of knew that there was something special about that place being up there on the lake. And that's when, Jake and I talked about it, and we decided that that would be a really perfect place to record in the way that we wanted to record.
Yeah, which we sort of we talked about it a little bit beforehand, and we kind of settled on a no phone rule. We would just hang out up there and try to look at as little screens as possible. We recorded the record on a Tascam 4-track, which is like this hilarious consumer cassette recording model from like the early 2000s that no one uses anymore. And we can get into that later, like us buying cassettes at the thrift store when we ran out. But it was important to us to kind of disconnect, and it really, really helped the recording process just feel more grounded. I think.
Yeah, the focus was the songs,
yeah,
and our performance of the songs.
Yes,
and it couldn't be anything else. That was pretty cool.
Well, so paint a picture of what that time was like. I mean, were you like waking up and wandering into the living room in your pajamas or whatever, and you light the fire and you pick up your guitars and just start playing? I mean, is it that like straight from rubbing Mr. Sleepy out of your eyes to picking up the guitar?
I mean, essentially,
it was pretty close.
That's pretty much what we did. We definitely had to set up everything the first day.
Yep.
We had 4 microphones that we were running, or maybe 5 with a room.
Yeah, I think we had one room mic, we had a vocal mic on each of us, and then a guitar mic, and then that was it. And then we would just kind of try to have everything set up so when we woke up in the morning, we could just jump right in.
After coffee and donut from the shop as well.
Yeah, we would get donuts.
at I'm guessing like the donut shop in Tupper Lake.
That's right, the laundromat, donut shop, the wash.
Which I had never seen anything like that place. And it was life-changing. I really will say, knowing that could exist, a laundromat donut shop.
It's kind of amazing when you think of it that it does not exist in New York City.
Yeah, right. That's true.
You would think like Brooklyn, there'd be like 20 of them.
You would think, that's a real business opportunity down here.
I didn't think of that.
Well, and so the original idea for these recordings was that you were thinking they would be demos, right?
Yeah, so we both took this class together, called Home Recording for the Singer-Songwriter by this guy named Philip Weinrobe, who we both respect so much. He's produced for Adrian Lenker and some other artists we really love. And he kind of instilled this philosophy in us of like, just record yourself in a room, not looking at a screen, and your performance in the song will be better. Don't splice any other takes. Don't worry about like the technical aspects of stuff. Like you recording your own music is going to be magical and people will connect with that. So I think we were like, these could be demos, but like, I don't know, maybe in Tupper there'll be some magic down there and we'll get really, really amazing takes. And I feel like that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I think we found it. And it's really cool because it obviously doesn't live in the same place that normal, highly produced albums do. They do have much more of a demo acoustic quality. You can hear the fire crackling in the background. It's raining one of the days. You've got a tape hissing that we got from the thrift shop. You've got a lot of artifacts that make it very human and imperfect, and we kind of leaned into that. The only thing we did once we got back to New York City is we added. We had a good friend of ours put some violin on the tracks.
easy part. It used to be so easy, we didn't have to try. Freely compromising, never asking why. Lately I've been drowning, the water's up to here. It got me reminiscing about a better year when you kissed me.
And we added a little bit of light bass just to kind of round out the sound, but also our goal was to really make it seem as though, you know, ideally they would have been up there with us. We would have had a bass player and violin all doing it at the same time, but you know, because it was of restrictions, it is what it is. But I think it sounds like it's in the same space. It sounds like it was recorded at the same time, and yeah, while it could have been just a demo, like, you know, a couple demos we put on SoundCloud in the first place, it's turned into something that we're really proud of, and I think we have decided that we're going to continue creating Tupper Tapes, volume 2, 3, 4.
Yep, maybe with other artists that we love and we collaborate with in the city, you know.
Yeah.
We all go up there and maybe we do an album where it's a bunch of different artists recording in Tupper, because it really is just it does something to your performance. You feel so relaxed up there. And I remember, like, after takes, we would just you know, we would go out and you can't see the stars in New York City. And just going out there and looking and doing some stargazing was just like, you know, the perfect way to end recording sessions in the night. And I don't know, it really got us psyched to record more. Feeling connected with the nature and just being in that community.
Well, and it's funny because the whole idea of recording in a studio is, or at least one of the ideas, is to make sure there's no extraneous noise, and yet that's really kind of the appeal to, you know, this like the feel of this record.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the extraneous noise in Tupper Lake is a lot better than the extraneous noise you get here in Brooklyn. Here we've got like people yelling, honking.
Yeah, you've probably heard a couple things out the window already.
Yeah. Up in Tupper, it's like, yeah, you got like birds chirping and the lapping of the waves of the lake on the shore, and fire crackling, rain, like all of these natural elements that are so soothing to hear. I mean, like, I'll put on, you know, white noise that is literally just waves lapping to fall asleep at night. So I think there's really something to that, and there's something kind of, you know, special about hearing that as a listener, intertwined with some music that kind of thematically works with it too. We write music that's folk based. Some would call it like nature folk, because it's inspired by nature in some capacity as well. Yeah.
Indulge me for a second. I mean, over the years, there is a question, or maybe just a thought that has come up in a bunch of interviews I've done with musicians, and it's the idea that, like, an album, to the person or people that wrote it, can feel like a set of snapshots, almost like a photo album that captures that time in a musician's life. And usually when I talk about that idea, it's because of the content of the songs themselves, or the subjects of the songs themselves. Do you think these songs will be forever wrapped up in your minds as much because of the way they were recorded as for what you were writing about when you wrote them in the first place?
I think so. I definitely have internal snapshots of like specific takes that we would do. Or like when we would, like, I remember when there's a song on the record called Caroline, and I remember when we did Caroline in one take. And I remember after it was done, it just feeling, we both knew when it was done. We were like, that's the one. And I think it was one of the last ones we recorded, and we recorded it over the Christmas. We have it right here to show you.
This is the tape.
This is the tape. We ran out of tapes, and so we went to Thrifty Nifty, the local thrift store, and we found a couple tapes there, and we were like, all right, we're gonna record over these. And we tried to go up to buy the tapes, and And the person in the front was like, "Oh, you're getting cassettes? Like, just take them.
Just take them.
Just take them.
Nobody's listening to these."
We got them for free because no one listens to cassettes. But I remember listening to doing Caroline over that tape, and we knew.
Caroline, Caroline, can we walk to the shore, down a path that we never been before? Do you want more time with me?
I think with all of these songs, yes, there's elements of like when we wrote the songs, when we the content of the songs, but I think overall, like, they're always going to be tied to like those moments and like listening to the fire and oh, we recorded this one in the morning, or I Forever on the record was like the first thing we recorded, and we did it late at night. It was like 11 p.m. and that song's pretty haunting. That song's pretty haunting, so I feel like it was like it really added to the atmosphere of it.
Old abandoned buildings, driving after dark. Why does it feel like it was over before it starts? Yeah, I thought we could go forever. Yeah, we could go forever, you and me. Yeah, I thought we could go forever. Yeah, we could go forever, you and me.
That's a really good point you bring up, Mitch. Because we write both together and separately, I think that our project kind of needed some sort of cohesion at the point of recording and performance to really bring it all together, because it is like vignettes. Each song does kind of live on its own. It's not a concept album where there's a true through line. There's no, story arc necessarily. I mean, you could probably find some stuff in there, but at the end of the day, we were recording the songs in the same place together in the same way on the same schedule. It was pretty magical in that way. And in the modern day recording world, there are times when vocals might be recorded a week after the band records, and if I'm the vocalist, I might be like really sleepy, whereas the band had just had all their coffee and they're really feeling freaking, like, let's go. And I think that matters. It's very subtle and it's hard to perceive.
You can feel it though, as a listener. You can feel it that there's some disjointedness. I don't know. Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. I don't know if either of you have ever read David Byrne's How Music Works.
Haven't, but I love David Byrne. He's my hero.
It's a really interesting book. I actually, in the spirit of your cassettes, we have this free table that exists outside NCPR that people just put stuff on, and it's like a little free library, only it has like an old fax machine and an iron and but also books sometimes. And so I found this one day on the table out there. And anyway, I'm reading it right now, and one of the parts that keeps bouncing around my head is maybe as much a philosophical question as anything else. Like, when you think about playing live versus playing in a studio, which is the real version of the song, and what are people looking for when they hear it? Because, I'm not a musician, but if I were a musician, it would seem frustrating to me that when like my fans came out to see me in concert, they would expect to hear a song that sounds just like it did in the studio. And I don't know if that's a question or not for you, but it strikes me that maybe you've like done a little of both with this album.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good question. It's even more relevant in the modern recording age. When you can do so much manipulation with audio, and you can change audio, and you can add tuning, you can add hundreds of tracks. Like, there used to be a 16-track recorder. You had 16 tracks, that's all you had.
That's it, yeah.
And we've been talking about this a little more, but I think there's so much power in limitations, because the simplicity of limitations can really bring musicians to places that I think are more powerful than having access to every tool in existence.
Absolutely. I mean, right now we're in an age where AI is coming up, right? And I think that's like the scary word that nobody really wants to talk about, especially in the arts community. But I think now is a better time than ever to lean into the things that make our art as human as possible. And that is, going back to analog, that is, buying the vinyl at the vinyl shop, uh, yeah, it's recording with limitations and kind of pushing yourself to be okay with what makes things imperfect and human and live. That is a really deep philosophical question. And if I were to give an answer off the cuff, I would say it's probably somewhere in between, because recording is obviously an art form in itself.
Yep.
It's very tough to make a good recording. But it's also, obviously very, it takes time to put on a good live performance, and that should be valued as a really special thing as well. That's cool. I gotta check that book out.
It's definitely worth a read. Um, well, and you're talking about like the just the analog world, and I'm looking up over Michael, your right shoulder, and you've got all these film cameras up on that shelf, which seems like it speaks directly to the way, in a visual way, the way this record came about. Like
Yeah,
if there's a film version of recording, I guess, I mean, I guess film is recording, but
100%. Jake is a film photographer as well, so it makes sense that he's the guy who bought the analog tape machine to record cassettes. And yeah, he's a phenomenal photographer as well. And when we were up there, he brought his film cameras and was shooting footage, which is really
amazing.
really cool.
Yeah.
A very analog trip.
less looking at screens.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like you only have 36 exposures, or you have to really make everything count, right? You have to really, take a second and be like, oh, and do I want to take this picture? It can really add a little bit more gravity to everything you're doing, and I think like help the artistic process.
As far as what you wrote about in these songs, these are some wistful songs. And it would be patronizing to say this, but I'll say it anyway. You seem far too young to be looking back with such melancholy.
Do you have a song in mind that's making you think of this?
Already over.
Come so easily at 17, a cannonball into the sea, safe inside the dream, young and naive. It's easier at 17, but it's already over. It's already over.
I think Already Over came about was because we came up with a cool riff. That's how we usually start when we're writing together. It's like cool riff, right? And then I think the first lyric that just came to mind, which is I think always the best. It's like whatever the first lyric is, that's probably where you should go with the song, was come so easily at 17. And we were like, what is this? Like, what are we talking about? And we thought it would be fun we like discussed a little bit, and the song kind of progressed, and we thought it would be fun to kind of do a Five for Fighting 100 Years, but like our version of that.
But it's already over. It's already over. It's already over. The time you thought you had on a live. You get old and you're sober. By the time you know what is true, you realize.
And that's what that's what kind of how the song happened. Just being inspired by that song.
Yeah, there. I don't think the guy in Five for Fighting had lived to 100.
Yeah.
But we only go up to 25 in our song.
We do.
We have achieved that age.
It's a shorter song that way.
Yeah.
It's definitely, looking at life with probably a lot more, perspective than I claim to have at any given moments in my life. But yeah, I think that's a special one because it's just, trying to narrate the seasons, the seasons of love and loss and heartbreak and growth, you know.
This person that you've known for all these years and your stages we have a lot of songs about that, about like someone that you're in love with for a long period of time and the change of that, and how that evolves. Yeah, that just tends to be something we write about.
You think about it at 56 too, so that's all right.
Good.
So, like speaking of heartbreak, maybe that heartbreak is going too far, but when the recording process was done, or at least the process in Tupper Lake, and you hopped into your car or the train or however you got back to Brooklyn, was there any kind of letdown that it was done?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Crashing back to reality is really what it felt like. It's a little melancholy. Obviously we whenever you're away recording on a job or playing some shows, I definitely do miss home. I'm a homebody. I love being in my like safe space. This cabin that we were staying in recording, this old hunting cabin with no winterization that we were making fires in, had become very homey to me and to us very quickly.
Yeah, it was cozy in there.
Yeah, to break down the audio equipment, to realize that, we have more content to record, but for now, we're just gonna let this be.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on it. It did feel like the end of part of the process, which I think was grieved in a little bit of a way, but it led to the next part of the process, which was so fun. I mean, when we got those strings back from our friend Felix, Felix Herbst put the strings on the pieces, and we listened to them here in the studio. It was unreal hearing how it took it to the next level. We heard how the songs could develop, and we also used the Tupper Tapes as a stepping stone in the progress of our band. Tupper Tapes is the first thing we've done together as a duo project. We do have aspirations to record a fully produced album or EP next up, and kind of doing it this way, it's like I think we figured things out about our sound by figuring out what it is just as the two of us, and then adding this little piece and then adding this little piece, as opposed to getting everybody together in the studio at once and then everyone's finding out what the song is for them on top of each other. Not to say that can't work, but I do think that the way we kind of gradually approached this process and figuring out what these songs are and what they mean and how they sound is really gonna help us in the long run.
Yeah, like what's the bedrock of these songs? What's the bedrock of our identity as a group, as a duo? And I think it was really successful at helping us figure out what that is for the next step.
Well, we'll definitely want to hear about the next step. Jake and Michael, thank you both so much. Congratulations on the record, and let's talk again.
Thank you,
For
Mitch.
sure. Thanks for having us, Mitch.
You rock.
Jake Slater and Michael Shofi are the group Drifter. Their new recording is called the Tupper Tapes Volume 1, and it was recorded in Tupper Lake. They live in Brooklyn, but watch this space. They are planning to return to the scene of the crime, or at least the recording, to play some shows this summer. We'll let you know. You can see some of the photos from their time recording last October in Tupper Lake at ncpr.org/northwards.
You're perfectly erratic. You tell me I'm dramatic when I I tell you we're falling for you.
That is all for this edition of Northwards. I'm Mitch Tyke, and I produce and host the show, and this week I mixed it as well because the guy who usually gets credit for digital production supervision is out, but let's give him some credit anyway. He is the amazing Ethan Shanty. Our theme music, not what you are hearing right now because that's by Drifter, but our theme music is written by the Whitmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. You can find the whole Northwards archive and subscribe to the podcast and our weekly newsletter at ncpr.org/northwards. Thank you so much for listening. This is a production of NCPR, North Country Public Radio.
Forgetting all that you are, forgetting underneath the clouds or stars, trying to be strong, people did you wrong. You put all of your troubles in a song. When I see you, you're perfectly right. You tell me